guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is entitled Karen's Got Me Free Pizza and Beer. A recent discussion reminded me of this incident. It comes from why I believe the world would be a better place if everyone had to work at least 6 months in a customer service job. Having been there, a store or restaurant can totally mess up and I'll mostly go, crap happens. How do we fix it? That attitude is a surprise for some folks. The entitled Karens only get small roles in the story but are the main cause of my fortune. A few weeks ago, I went to my local pizza place to pick up an online order. Instead of a pizza and a calzone, there was 2 pizzas, one of which had all the ingredients for the calzone. I check my online receipt, and it says a pizza and calzone. I show it to the server, and she looks embarrassed. She quietly asks if I'm okay to wait while they remake the calzone. She looked like she was bracing herself for me to pitch a fit. I say, okay. Do you mind if I grab a table and a beer, since it's not too busy? She looked kind of shocked but said sure, and I chatted with her and the kitchen staff, open kitchen, while the calzone was cooking. While I'm there, a lady comes in and demands her pizza. It wasn't quite ready yet, and she pitches a fit in the waiting area. I ordered 15 minutes ago, how is it not ready? She continued to idiot until her pizza was done and then sailed out the door. I exchanged a look of WTF? With the server and staff. When the calzone was done, the server brought it plus 2 pizzas. One was the mistake pizza. The server finally introduced herself as the manager. She told me that right before I came in another Karen's order had gotten messed up and she had yelled at the manager and the kitchen staff to give her the right order right now. I figure that's why my order got misread. She said all day they had been dealing with impatient, rude, and entitled customers. She thanked me for being understanding, patient, and friendly. Then gave me the mistake pizza for no charge. I've actually ordered that pizza before. Sometimes I just want it in a grown-up pizza roll, and no, it's not a cheap pizza. When I tried to pay for my beer, she said it was on the house. Just because I wasn't making their job harder. So, I stuffed the price of my beer in the tip jar. The next story is titled I'm So Disabled I Need a Wheelchair 24/7 and I Play a Mean Game of Racquetball Too. Shortly after retiring from the U.S. Army, where I served for 20+ years as a counterintelligence agent, catching spies, I worked briefly for a friend who owned a private detective agency. One of his major clients was an insurance company and, during my time with his agency, I investigated 12 different cases of people claiming large amounts due to accidents and/or injuries. In 11 of the 12 cases, the person was legitimately hurt, and they received the money they deserved. However, there was one who was not. He had claimed he had slipped and fallen on packed snow and ice in front of a supermarket and had injured his back so much that he was permanently confined to a wheelchair. He was suing the supermarket and its insurance company for a large amount of money. So, I did what I did in all the cases. I followed the person around for several days to see if their complaint appeared to be valid. On the second day of my surveillance, he drove to a local gym, got out of his car and walked inside. No wheelchair, no walker, no cane. I followed him inside the gym, pretended to be another gym member and played 4 games of racquetball with him. He legitimately won 2 of the 4 games and I didn't go easy on him either. The following week there was a meeting between him, his lawyer and the insurance company's lawyers. He was there in his wheelchair and had even brought X-rays of his injured back. When I walked in, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. It turned out that he had lied to his lawyer and had gotten a friend who was an X-ray technician at a local hospital to borrow a set of an actual patient's X-rays and put his name on them, offering to share the insurance payout with the X-ray tech. The result? He and the X-ray tech both ended up going to jail for fraud. His original attorney quit when he found out his client had lied to him and he had to find a different lawyer to represent him in the fraud case, but there wasn't much the new lawyer could do for his client. I happily testified at the trial. The next story is titled Supermarket Beggar. A few days ago I went to the supermarket for some groceries. Being a college student, I already don't have much to begin with, but that particular day I felt like putting some good energy out there. There's this homeless, poor guy who always sits in front of the supermarket and he would always beg for coins or food. That particular day, he specifically asked for some bread, so I repeated his request to confirm, a baguette? He then proceeds to deny, saying that, I decide to go with it because I don't have the energy to argue, then shows me an expensive instant coffee for me to buy him. Having been had before, I started watching out from beggars asking for stuff, especially expensive, from supermarkets. If I could tell my past self one thing about this is make sure you're not blowing too much cash, because as far as you know they could be returning them to the store or reselling them. It's a common money-making scheme. Anyways, I put my foot down and told him that I absolutely didn't have the money to buy that even for myself, which was true, so he tried bargaining for a high-end canned meal. We're talking 5 to 6 times more than the initial baguette request. Since I had already agreed to buy him something, I went and got the cheapest cassoulet, the meal he asked for, I could find, and it turned out to be from a brand I regularly buy from because, well, I'm broke. Thankfully he wasn't upset that I didn't get him the specific brand he wanted, but I don't think I'll be kind to this specific dude again for the simple reason that he gaslit me like it was nothing. The next story is titled Am I the A-hole for making my neighbor destroy our hedge and beat up his car? So in my neighborhood the houses are built sort of like a sandwich. So there is my house, my driveway, a shared hedge, fence, my neighbor's driveway, and then his house. I hope that is clear. My neighbor has 2 kids, each of whom have their own car. So they have 4 cars and my family has 2. There is no street parking. Our driveways lead to detached garages. His kid has the bad habit of parking in my driveway when I'm not home. He can park between our houses and just walk to his side entrance. I am sort of done asking him not to do this, but I'm not calling by law enforcement or towing him. I didn't want grief in the neighborhood. Yesterday he did it again. So I parked behind him and went for a bike ride. We are enjoying a beautiful Indian summer. When I got back I noticed that the hedge was torn up. It was kind of hard to miss. I guess what happened is after he got home everyone else left. I have no idea why he didn't call a cab or an Uber. What he did instead is drive over the hedge between our driveways. These aren't little raspberry brambles. These are 30-year-old hedges. Anyway, his dad is sitting there looking at the hedge. He asks me if I know what happened. I said come over for a beer and we can check my surveillance. So now the kid is choked because he has to pay to replace the hedge and his car is all scratched up. I guess he had been warned he would be fired if he was late for work again. So the kid thinks I'm the a-hole for blocking him in on purpose, which I guess I sort of did. But the consequences were completely unintended. I was planning on moving the car to let them out when I got home. He could have called an Uber. Hell, he could have called in sick. Comment said, so the neighbor kid parked on your property, on top of it damaged something. And has audacity to be chalked to be held accountable for his actions? Well, welcome to adulthood. You are not the a-hole. Another comment said, not the a-hole. He made his choices and those led to this outcome. You've asked him before not to park on your property, more than once I believe. He failed to listen and now he's paying the price. This is on him. He has some growing up to do, and I hope this will give him a push in the right direction. The next story is titled If You're Going to Discriminate Against Me, Make Sure You Can Do Your Job Without Me, First. Once upon a time, I worked for a health center in their billing department. I'd been there for quite some time already and knew the office inside and out. Staff turnover had actually been rather rare. But, when the office manager decided to retire, things swiftly changed. At first, we got a brilliant ray of sunshine as our new office manager. She really changed the office, modernized how we did things and helped establish us as a stellar place to work. I'd never been happier. But good things can't last forever. She was a star and was offered a much better job at another health facility for a lot better pay and benefits. We literally cried when she left, we had adored her so much. Before I go any further, there's a few things I need to add in. Details, Yano. I have a mental illness called schizoaffective disorder. It's the depressive type. I actively have auditory hallucinations and frequent bouts of serious depression. But, I've had it for decades now and it's well controlled with medication and cognitive therapy. One of the things that office manager did for me was to make sure I had a number of accommodations set up. One of them was the use of a special task-oriented website, and the other was to be allowed to listen to a noise generator website. Both of these were vital in helping me maintain concentration and get my work done efficiently and correctly. About a week after the new, and now old, office manager left for her new job, we got Karen. I know the term is overused, but my God, stereotypes exist for a reason, and the reason was this lady. Karen immediately set about making her mark on the department. All the goodwill we had built with our previous supervisor was out the window in short order. She immediately tightened restrictions on the office. Silence was in order. We were not allowed to speak unless on the phones or talking to a patient at the front counter. She even sent an email telling me if I had to blow my nose, I had to get up and go to the bathroom to do it. She also had a devil of a time figuring out how to do reports in our billing software. As I had been there forever, I was tasked with showing her how to do things. It was an exercise in patience and teeth grinding. And futility. She absolutely couldn't figure it out. I tried everything to teach her. Printed things out, highlighted things, added things up and showed her the tape, marked reports with arrows. Nope. She wasn't getting it. And she blamed me for it. So began what I can only describe as a 2-year terror campaign on her part to punish me. She forced me to move from the desk I'd been sitting at for over a decade. Reminder. I'm schizoaffective. Moves like that can easily cause chaos in my brain for months until I settle. Just thinking about it makes my heart start to race. It was awful. My new seat was now right by the door to her office, and in sight of everyone in the office. My paranoia was at an all-time high. She then began having IT track all my internet traffic. If I checked the weather on a day we were supposed to get snow, she had me in her office asking me what I was doing on non-work related sites. Any site I visited that actually was work-related got questioned. She made sure I knew she was watching me and everything I did. This included the 2 websites I was using as accommodations. I explained how I used them and why, and she was not having it. She went to HR and explained the sites I used were unprofessional. HR decided to side with her, and told me they were removing them, and asked me to find a more professional way to do things. Then comes the clincher from Karen. She looks me dead in the eyes and says, "If you're too sick to work here, then maybe you shouldn't work here." And that was it. I knew what she was doing was discriminatory, and HR wasn't going to do anything to protect me. So, that's when I decided I was going to get a new job, and make sure she crashed and burned on my way out. I collected everything. All her nastygram emails she'd sent out over the years. All her sticky notes. I kept copies of spreadsheets and other things showing she was absolutely incapable of doing the job without assistance. My assistance, mind you. I was doing 80% of her job for her. These I assembled in a binder, complete with date and timestamps and explanations I'd typed up and printed off as covers to each incident. The binder was so thick I ended up having to start a second one. As I did this, I applied for another job at a nonprofit. They interviewed me, and the HR lady asked for permission to speak to my current supervisor. I hesitated, and then explained why I'd okay it, but to expect her to attempt to tank me. And boy, did she. I could hear the condescending tone of her voice through the door to her office, even if I couldn't quite make out what she was saying. And I knew she was talking to the potential new job's HR lady. HR lady called me after and asked if I was still in contact with my previous supervisor. The one I adored. I was. We were friends on Facebook, and as soon as I contacted her there, she was glad to help me out by speaking to this potential new job's hour. They offered me the job the next day. I cannot tell you how satisfying it was to walk into Karen's office and give my 2 weeks' notice. Her face just fell. She'd been defeated, and man, it was a sour taste in her mouth that she couldn't contain. Because for all her bluster that she wanted me to quit, in reality she didn't really want me gone. She knew she couldn't do her job without me. And now that very reality was staring her in the face. Those last 2 weeks were grand. I blew my nose in the office. Checked the weather whenever I pleased. And I stopped doing her work. Just mine, which I made sure was 100% caught up before I walked out the door. She was stressed and struggling and asking me to do things for her before I left. I said, sure, and tossed whatever it was into a drawer I didn't touch for the remainder of my time there. Of course, on my last day, I had my exit interview. I didn't stay long. I just informed them they had a very incompetent manager on their hands, gave them the 2 binders of dirt I'd collected, and reminded them that people don't quit jobs. They quit bad management and poor HR decisions. Coworkers in the office kept me abreast of developments after I left for my new job. She lasted less than a month after my resignation. There'd even been a huge blow-up in the middle of the office between one of the HR folks and Karen over her incompetence. Since I wasn't there anymore to clean up after her, financials were a mess, and they were in the red for hundreds of thousands of dollars that were unaccounted for. All because Karen couldn't figure out how to do her job, and she'd been there for over 2 years at that point. It's been a few years now and I'm still super happy at my new job. And from what I hear, she's now working in an office of a dinky little place where she's in charge of absolutely no one for a fraction of the salary she was getting previously. As it should be. The next story is titled The Quickest Way to Get Fired and Arrested on the Job. I went to college in a resort town. My junior year I got a job working at a beach resort hotel, specifically as a bartender. It was a fairly upscale resort, and rooms went for around $700–1,000 United States dollars per night in the summer. In the winter months our rates were pretty cheap and it wasn't uncommon to see college students and people my age staying at the hotel on a random weekend in January. It was a small hotel and a pretty small staff too. There were as many employees that worked in the restaurant as the actual hotel. The front desk staff was usually pretty chill as a whole and they would come in after their shifts and drink in the bar. Looking back, there was tons of drinking on the job and plenty of the kitchen staff was on hard drugs. I have so many stories about this place, but this is the absolute worst. It wasn't uncommon for the front seat staff and housekeepers to come to the bar and drink for a while after their shifts. The hotel owner was a legit alcoholic and free drinks in the bar was one of the perks that came with the job. As an employee, you could drink for several hours and walk out with a bar tab of $20. One night in the winter, a large group of women, bachelorette party probably, was staying in the hotel and they occupied the bar for most of the night. Our bar staff had a habit of over-serving guests that were staying at the hotel. The logic was of course that they weren't driving, so it wasn't uncommon for guests to get absolutely crap-faced. One of the front desk staff, a newly hired guy, had finished his shift and made his way to the bar around 10 p.m. On the weekends we served booze until 2 a.m., so over the course of 4 hours he got a pretty good buzz going. He had spent the better part of the night hitting on one particular woman, who against better judgment had reciprocated interest at one point in the night. As 2 a.m. rolls around, some of the girls had sobered up and were trying to get everyone back to their rooms. One of the ladies had made an effort to separate the front desk employee and the women, realizing that she was very intoxicated and this employee was being creepy. We close up the bar and are finishing up closing work. The front desk employee didn't take very kindly to being separated from this chick and decided to look up her reservation in the computer. Why he was allowed to go behind the front desk was beyond me. He found out her room number and made a duplicate key to the room and let himself into her room. Luckily, one of the sober girls was in the room with the drunk lady, because apparently she was projectile vomiting all over the room. This drunk guy stumbles into her room, only to get pepper sprayed repeatedly. Delirious and drunk, he slips and falls on the puke in the foyer of the room and knocks himself unconscious. Hotel management was alerted and the police were called. All I know is he went to jail that night and was fired. Never seen him again after that. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.